for some other aldermen to come in. While I'm waiting to call the meeting to order and a couple more aldermen to come in, I want to welcome everybody to the July 14th Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting. Tonight, we're honored to have Scoutmaster Lewis Whitfield along with his son Hank Whitfield, who's a scout, and he will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And our typical invocation is offered by Alderman Barnhill. So we're going to call the roll now. And Alderman Barnhill.
Here.
Alderman Blanton is absent. Alderman Caesar.
Present.
Alderman Peterson.
Here.
Alderman Berger.
Present.
Alderman Brown.
Present.
Alderman Potts.
Present.
Vice Mayor Baggett.
Present.
And the mayor is here also. So if we'll please rise for the invocation, and I'll ask Hank Whitfield to come on up with me. So, Alderman Barnhill.
Would you bow, please? Heavenly Father, we come to you in prayer tonight, thanking you for this opportunity that we have, this opportunity to meet a freedom that we so cherish. We know that you are the provider of these freedoms, the protector of those freedoms also. We ask that you be with our first responders, the people who protect the citizens of Franklin, the police department, the fire department, the first responders. We ask that you be with them. We know that it is a difficult time and there's many dangers out there now that they face each day as they do their job. We also know that there's many things going on in this world that are for nature that we need to be concerned about. We ask that you be with our world leaders as they make decisions. We ask that you give them the wisdom that they need in order to make the decisions that are best related to this country that we have. We also ask that you give us as aldermen the decisions that we make, we know affect the city of Franklin. Give us the spiritual wisdom and guide us to make those decisions. Christ, we pray. Amen.
There you go. Go ahead.
Everybody please join me in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Hank. I do have two proclamations tonight. And the first proclamation is for Leadership Franklin. And I would ask Paula Harris to come up. Everybody knows Paula. Please, Paula. So listen up for this proclamation. Whereas Leadership Franklin was established in 1996 with an initial board of directors consisting of Julian Bibb III, Caroline Cross, Jim Cross, Gail Moyer Harris, and Richard Harrington. And whereas Leadership Franklin was created for the purpose of bringing together existing leaders within the Franklin community who represent a wide group of different disciplines with diverse backgrounds for a 10-month program that equips those leaders with an understanding of many issues that Franklin faces. Whereas each 10th month program, these leaders are exposed to challenges and opportunities present in Franklin in a wide variety of areas, including history, healthcare, business, government, relations, education, criminal justice, quality of life, tourism, economic development, entertainment, land resources. And I also should put Mrs. Cross in there.
That's right.
She was great fun. Whereas one of the central goals of Leadership Franklin is to enable participants to work together to make decisions that benefit the Franklin community, and whereas more than 500 alumni have benefited from the program and alumni engagement offered by Leadership Franklin, whereas Leadership Franklin has contributed more than 100 class projects benefiting the Franklin community, including the Jimmy Gentry statue erected in downtown Franklin, ideas that led to the establishment of Bicentennial Park, the creation of both the Leadership Franklin Scholarship Fund and the Caroline J. Cross Service Award, the installation of a time capsule at the new City Hall, the painting of a mural within the Franklin Special district building and development of a series of Franklin legacy videos and more. And now therefore, I, Dr. Ken Moore, Mayor of the City of Franklin, do hereby proclaim July 30th, 2026 as Leadership Franklin Day and encourage all citizens to join me in celebrating the 30th anniversary of Leadership Franklin. If you're a Leadership Franklin alumni, would you please raise your hand? Great. Let's give them a hand.
Thank you all so much for this recognition and for the time that you all spend with us each year. We couldn't do this program without this great city. I always say it's a reflection on the leadership of this city, its citizens, and our wonderful history. And it warms my heart to see so many alum, and you all have stayed engaged. Thank you. And we're looking forward to the 30th. We're going to have a big party at Bicentennial Park, Franklin Leadership Franklin Project. So thank you all.
Okay, this is a special one. I'm going to ask May Cross to come up. May came to visit me, 9 or 10 months ago, and she had been working on a special project at school, and it involved a person that this proclamation is going to talk about. So whereas Sergeant George Jordan was born in 1847 near present-day College Grove in Williamson County, Tennessee, and following the Civil War enlisted in the United States Army in 1866 at the age of 19, serving for 30 years with Company K of the 9th United Cavalry Regiment, one of the renowned Buffalo Soldier regiments. Whereas as the county seat of Williamson County, the city of Franklin proudly recognizes Sergeant George Jordan's extraordinary service and honors one of our county's most distinguished heroes whose courage and devotion to duty continue to inspire future generations. Whereas during the Indian Wars, Sergeant Jordan displayed steadfast leadership at the defense of Fort Tularosa in 1880, directing the successful protection of soldiers and civilians against overwhelming odds. And whereas Sergeant George Jordan further distinguished himself at the Battle of Carrizo Canyon in 1881, where his courage, sound judgments, and tactical leadership contributed to the efficacious defense of his fellow soldiers. And whereas for these acts of heroism, Sergeant George Jordan was awarded the Medal of Honor on May the 7th, 1890, the United States' highest military decoration for valor, becoming Williamson County's first and only Medal of Honor recipient whose service exemplified the highest ideals of military duty and selfless sacrifice. And now, therefore, I, Dr. Ken Moore, Mayor of the City of Franklin, do hereby proclaim July 28, 2026 as Sergeant George Jordan Day and encourage all of our citizens to recognize his achievements. Thanks, mate. Okay. So next is citizen comments for items that are not on the agenda tonight. We have Stephanie Tillman and Linnell Weathers. I'll let them tell you who they are. And Stephanie and Linnell, please come forward.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening.
It is a pleasure to be able to come and provide an update on LEAP, which is the Law Enforcement Assistance Partnership that supports the Franklin police officers. My name is Stephanie Tillman, and I sit on the board for LEAP. Our primary mission as a nonprofit organization is to support the police officers through financial support, oftentimes during medical crisis. We also provide scholarships, college scholarships to the police officers' children, and provide appreciation days and support to the families. For our nonprofit, we are completely volunteer. We don't have any paid employees. So as you know, this requires the board to really roll up their sleeves, put in a lot of time, and get very involved with passion. I'd like to introduce the president of LEAP, our board president, Linnell Weathers, and she's going to share some additional information with you about LEAP and how we support the Franklin police officers.
Thank y'all so much for this opportunity to be here. I'm not actually sure if everybody's even heard of LEAP. So it stands for Law Enforcement Assistance Partnership, and our main focus is the Franklin police officers. We do help them, so if they have any kind of medical need or financial assistance in that sense, then we are able to assist them. We are fully volunteers. We only survive off of donations from a local community, from each other donating, and then whenever we do events and stuff. So we are fully funded strictly from our community. Our mission is LEAP exists to provide the confidential support and meaningful assistance in the Franklin police officers through an unexpected life events such as medical situations, injuries, family hardships can happen also for our officers. And what we want to do is provide them with an opportunity to have that need met on that financial side, maybe at home, like something to take something off that burden off their shoulders. And then when that burden's gone from their shoulders, they can focus more on serving us and we can focus more on serving them. So that's our main mission. Our programs that we offer is a variety of programs, so services supporting Franklin police officers and their families. We provide confidential assistance at all times of needs. We also give them for their scholarships for officers' children. So for each year, we do take applications. We do make sure we send it out through the police department. We're not part of the police department, but we definitely support the police department. We try to keep ourselves involved in their circles. We do want to provide them with meals at times, give them some good morality, make sure we show up, let them see our smiling faces so they know that we're here to help them, and they are our main focus. We do have a website. If you want to go on there and look, it's under LEAP Franklin. And then, of course, we have our social media as well. If you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for supporting our police. Okay. Next is the consent agenda. And all items on the consent agenda are deemed to be non-controversial and routine in nature, but the governing body will be approved is recommended by committee or staff by one motion of the governing body. We're looking at items 15 through 23 to be placed on the consent agenda tonight. And does anyone want to pull anything or make any alterations to the consent agenda? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you. Second by Alderman Potts. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Caesar.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Baggett.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. We'll now go to setting of the agenda. Are there any changes in the agenda that need to be identified? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Alderman Caesar. It's a second by Alderman Barnhill. Any discussion? Let's vote. Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Caesar.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Baggett.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. We'll now go to any communications for the Williamson County Commission. I do notice we have Commissioner Petty here with us tonight, so we welcome him. But I have no official reports from the County Commission. I'll now go to miscellaneous reports, and I'm going to start out with a special recognition that we just received. A team representing the city of Franklin went to Denver, Colorado to compete in the All-American City competition. There were 20 cities picked from all across America to be finalists. We were in Denver with our team, which made up of Franklin Tomara, part of the Youth Advisory Commission, and the City of Franklin, and myself. We had 10 minutes to make a presentation about Franklin and what we're doing as far as civic engagement. I'm glad to report that we were one of the 10 cities that received the award, and I'm glad now to display this not only to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen and staff, but also the City of Franklin citizens, and tell you this is the second time we've got it. So. And I follow that up with a note that I received today from Tallahassee, Florida. The mayor of Tallahassee sent me this note. Ken, and I don't know Mayor Daley, but he knows Franklin. He said, "Congratulations on being named a 2026 All-American City. Your community is absolutely amazing. I look forward to visiting soon. Sincerely, John." We look forward to him coming, and we will welcome him when he comes, and we will enjoy him spending money in Franklin. So, other miscellaneous reports. Mr. Stuckey.
I'm going to come down there.
Okay.
I want to add to a recognition here. We have a special guest with us. Okay, going up. Okay, great. Kevin Townsell served us at the City of Franklin for over 9 years as our Human Resources Director. He retired officially at the end of June and has opened a new chapter in his life, but wanted to take a moment with you and publicly to thank Kevin for his service. He served with passion and joy and care for our people, serving and supporting a team of over 800 people that work every day to serve this great community. So we wanted to recognize him at this stage of his retirement from the city. We give folks a choice of what they would like. And apparently Kevin wants a cold beverage because we've got a nice Yeti cooler embossed with the city seal on it. But we wanted to recognize Kevin at this meeting. He's got his family with him as well. But congratulations on your retirement, and thank you so much for your service.
Thanks so much.
With the family.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate everybody.
Oh, there we go.
You have to go.
Get in it.
Thanks, everybody.
So there are comings and goings in our organization, and I want to make an introduction tonight. Jill Parsons joins us as our new management fellow. Jill's up there in the luxury box with Michael and Michelle. Appreciate so much. Jill has joined us as our management fellow. She is in the midst of her master's in public administration at the University of Kansas, a program that specializes specifically in local government, professionalism in local government. She joins us. She's been an intern in Leawood, Kansas. She is also an undergraduate from the University of Kansas in political science and a special emphasis in Spanish. So we're really thrilled to have her on board. She's in her second week, and you're going to get to see a lot of her, as you've seen of the management fellows over the years. So this is a program we've had since 2019 and a great way to bring talent into our organization, new perspectives, but also invest in the future of public service. So welcome, Jill. And I'll just say one last thing. I want to just add to the mayor's comments about All America City. It's a big deal. It's a big deal to do it once. It's a really big deal to do it twice in 6 years. So that's a statement about the community, about the city, and the work that happens here. It's special. And sometimes we get into our own bubble in a way and our own focus of the issues and challenges of the day, and we sometimes miss what is so special around us every day. So this is a nice a nice reminder of that, but also an inspiration to continue to move forward and push the community in ways that makes Franklin special and kind of invests even further in what has made Franklin such a great place to live, raise a family, build a business. And I want to especially recognize our city team members. Mayor Moore helped lead that delegation. Michael Walters-Young, Joey Echeverria, I hope I said his name right, sorry, Joey. Robert Mott, Melissa Ryerson all played an important role in putting together that application, putting together the presentation, and preparing us to tell our story in only a way that Franklin can. Also want to thank Franklin Tomorrow. They're an incredibly important partner. They help us engage the community every day, but they also help us tell that important story. And it is a unique organization. When we talk to other communities, they're like, tell me about this. A community visioning organization helps you with engagement. They help us have conversations that government can't always have, but includes us in the table as well. So we're just grateful for the leadership Mindy Tate has provided there. Sarah Johnson's joined the staff recently and is a great team member, and a number of their board members and other citizens that help make this a great event and a great achievement for our community. So thank you very much, and we're proud to be Franklin, Tennessee, an all-America city. Thank you.
Alderman Berger.
I would like to point out one little caveat here, is that Franklin Tomorrow was founded by Leadership Franklin, a group of people who went through Leadership Franklin. And if you've ever been through Leadership Franklin, you know you're tasked with doing a project. And a group of people came up with needing to put together something that would support our wonderful city. So Leadership Franklin came out of that. Thank you.
That's worth a clap.
We thought that was good.
Are there any other miscellaneous reports or communications we need to recognize? If not, we're going to go to the approval of the minutes from June 23rd, 2026 work session, Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting, and the June 29th joint Board of Mayor and Alderman and Williamson County Commission work session. So is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Thank you, Alderman
Second.
Brown. Second by Alderman Berger. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Caesar.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Baggett.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. We'll now go to old business. This is a public hearing, consideration resolution 2026-36, a resolution approving a revised development plan for Tuckaway PUD subdivision with 2 modifications of development standards, sidewalks for the property located west of Lewisburg Pike and south of Bowman Road located at 1190 Lewisburg Pike.
Good evening. This is the public hearing for the Tuckaway PUD subdivision development plan. There are not any changes to the development plan itself, but there are 2 requests for modifications of standards for required sidewalk connections, and that's why this is before you tonight. The previous plan permitted the development of a church campus and an existing house to remain to be used as administrative office space. The Tuckaway PUD also has an approved modification of standards already, so that's MOS number 1 that's not being considered tonight, and that was for the removal of the required cross access to the parcel just to the south. So tonight we're going to be discussing modification of standards number 2 and number 3. So modification of standards number 2 is a request to allow the required pedestrian connection that runs from the Lewisburg Pike sidewalk to the front door of the building to permit alternate materials such as mulch for the internal sidewalk connection, and that the sidewalk construction be deferred until the installation of the sidewalk along Lewisburg Pike occurs. Staff has recommended disapproval of modification of standards number 2, but at the May 28th Planning Commission meeting, the Planning Commission moved to approve modification of standards number 2 with the condition that the sidewalk be concrete and that the sidewalk run parallel to the proposed driveway. But their motion supported the component of the modification of standards request to defer the sidewalk construction until the sidewalk along Lewisburg Pike is installed. So that was what the Planning Commission's motion was, and they had quite a bit of discussion about that. Modification of standards number 3 is a request to defer the construction of the required sidewalk along Lewisburg Pike until such time that Lewisburg Pike is widened or for a period of 10 years, whichever occurs first. Staff recommended disapproval of this modification of standards as well. At the Planning Commission meeting in May, the Planning Commission moved to approve that modification of standards number 3 with an amended condition that the applicant enter into a development agreement with the city. That development agreement would only occur once this condition is actually added by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, though, so that would not necessarily fall in line with this timing. That would be something that occurs after you would actually make the condition added if you chose to do that. So that is the conclusion. It's really just those 2 modifications of standards, and Franklin Municipal Planning Commission recommended approval of the development plan by a vote of 8-0, including their amended recommendations of approval for the modifications of standards. And staff recommended denial initially, but as you heard, that's just really for those 2 modifications of standards request. And I'm here to answer any questions if you have them.
Alderman Barnhill, do you have a question?
Yes.
Let's say we need a motion to get it on the floor.
Public hearing.
I'm good. Yep, you're good. A motion and
Second.
appropriate motion second. Oh, I'm sorry. Still a public hearing. It's been a while. Does anyone want to speak to this body during the public hearing? If not, I'm going to entertain a motion. And we'd go back to the original motion and a second as mentioned. So the public hearing is closed now. So with your permission, I'll recognize Alderman Barnhill.
If I'm reading or I've understood what you said about MOS 2, if you allow the sidewalk to not be built along the driveway, doesn't that automatically eliminate the sidewalk along Lewisburg? I mean, it's saying that you're connecting to the sidewalk on the street.
There are 2 requirements in the zoning ordinance. The first requirement is for the sidewalk along the street frontage, which would be Lewisburg Pike.
Right.
And then there's a second requirement in the zoning ordinance to connect the sidewalk along the frontage of the property to the front door of the building. And that's the other that's MOS number 2. And then the one along Lewisburg is MOS number 3.
And the clarified the planning commission approval was for the sidewalk to be parallel to the driveway.
Yes, they wanted it to be a hard surface so that it would be better used for strollers, for other, types of ADA reasons, and they wanted it to run parallel to the drive because that really seemed to make the most sense for how that connection be made to the front door.
Alderman Brown.
We probably, I may need to amend that because we did talk about this in the joint conceptual, and I actually agree with the condition, so I would like to amend the motion to say I move to approve with the conditions, because I actually think those conditions are appropriate.
And are you referring to modification of standard number 2 as to the sidewalk and making it parallel?
Both of them have conditions. Are we doing each one, or can we do
We
it
have to do
together?
each one separately.
Have the main motion, right?
We're on the main motion,
Okay.
but modification of standard number 2.
Yes.
So would you like to clearly state it?
Yes. Move to approve modification standard number 2 with condition.
Second.
And the condition?
Is, hold on,
As written.
as written, but here, I'll state it. Move to approve the sidewalk to be concrete and that the sidewalk parallel the proposed driveway. And that we defer the sidewalk construction until the sidewalk along Lewisburg Pike is installed.
Okay, appropriate motion.
I have the second.
Second by Alderman Berger. Alderman Peterson,
I just
you're
want to
recognized.
ask, because I think that's right, but are you saying also we would defer this until
No.
the,
Same motion as you all made.
okay, thank you.
Vice Mayor.
Well, point of clarification, I do think never mind. So what does the zoning ordinance say? Do we typically pick where one would put a sidewalk connection to the front door?
No, we allow the applicant to decide based on topography and other factors where that sidewalk does actually occur.
And this is my I agree with the type of material that it should be concrete. I'm less inclined for us to dictate exactly where it should go. I mean, I understand why you might think it should be on the driveway, but if we don't normally tell people where to put it, I just leave that out there for the board to discuss. I might be more inclined to do the same motion, but not to remove that it be required to be in a specific place.
Yeah, this is a unique site. The connection from Lewisburg Pike to the door of the building is a pretty substantial distance.
a long way.
So I think the planning commission was just really thinking that was the most logical place to put it because it was the most direct route. But the applicant normally does have freedom to choose that location.
And are they doing this little stub of a street still? Is that extension still included? It's
To
on
the
the
north?
graphics to the north.
Yes, that
know-
is still proposed, but in phase or section 3. So that may not occur for quite a while, which is in kind of in alignment with what the northern property owner desires.
Which then
as
they
well.
could, I guess what I'm thinking is at that point, if they did go to phase 3, then they could actually connect the sidewalk a little bit shorter there to that stub, and then they're having the sidewalk that in. And there's a lot of options that I think could happen, and we're kind of handcuffing them to a specific place. That would be my comment. I might end up making a motion to make that adjustment but I'd like to hear from everyone.
Alderman Potts.
Thank you, sir. I wanted to follow up on what Alderman Baggett's asking about right here, or his comments, and maybe either Emily or Alderman Peterson can actually provide some guidance on this. It is a very large, wide, long front yard, if you will, if I can call it a front yard, from Lewisburg all the way up to what will be their front door. And I'm curious if the Planning Commission talked at all about, we want to have it aligned with the driveway so that you don't have a sidewalk cutting up through the middle of this large, long frontage area that leads up to their front door. Was there any discussion about that? Because if that's the case, that makes sense as to why to put the sidewalk or ask them, as we normally don't require someone to do that, but just to encourage them to have that alignment. That makes sense for me, and I'm driving down there because it's in my ward, and I'd like to hear.
I believe that was part of the rationale. If
Okay.
it's okay, we do have the applicant here in the audience, and they can speak a little bit to where they're routing, where they think it makes sense. Because we haven't heard that the applicant's in disagreement necessarily with this, but it might give some context to what they plan to do.
Mr. Gamble? Pastor, come on up. You're suddenly a developer.
I am suddenly more and more so each meeting, aren't I? That's right. My name's Bill Wellens. I'm with Fellowship Bible Church, and that was actually not part of the discussion at Planning Commission per se, not specifically, but it is in the concept of what they were talking about, as Emily just said, and it's just fine with us. It's a good location for us. We're going up to the front door of Mrs. Cross, still living there now, but Mrs. Cross's house. That'd be the termination point. So coming in that driveway and walking up that way, you've heard my thoughts on whether or not a sidewalk makes sense long term. But in terms of the location and us agreeing with you there, we're just fine with it. Yeah, thanks Emily for the opportunity.
Along the same line, it does follow a good topography line as far as how the driveway is laid out.
Alderman Caesar.
I had a question. It was just more due to the nature of the motion that sits before us. As I understand it, we didn't provide any kind of a timeline on this modification of standard on when we would require it to be enforced. And is maybe a point of information or more of a point of the intent of the main motion carrier? Was the intent for this sidewalk to have a dependence on motion number 3 or MOS number 3, and that in MOS number 3 we would attach the 10-year timeline? Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
That because it says the sidewalk would not be required to be installed until the sidewalk along Lewisburg is installed.
I assume it's just presumptive that MOS number 3 will pass.
Yeah. Alderman Barnhill.
You know, it's interesting that we have this type of conversation because we've got staff recommending disapproval of MOS 2 and MOS 3 both. And I understand and I can see the reason for it because, you know, I question the wisdom of the board deviating from the rules that we have voted on and put in place. And if this was something other than, say, the church or whatever, then this would not even be a question. The sidewalk would be there, the sidewalk would be up through the property, whatever it was, or the stubbed out. And I really think, and I want to make sure that everyone understands, I'm not against the church or any portion of that. I just think that the board is in questionable ground whenever we deviate from the written rules that we have voted on and we have passed. That's a problem. Now, if, as an example, the property owner to the north of this comes in a year from now and they want to build 15 houses on that property, I don't know that you have a legitimate reason to have them connect to build a sidewalk because they don't have one to connect to, and you just give the adjoining property the right to not build a sidewalk for 10 years. And we've thrown some things in here, Lewisburg's going to be wide and this and that, but that's not necessarily what we've used in the past as criteria for not building the sidewalk. And we've got we just went through a GAP program, and I can tell you, you can go some places now and see where there's been GAP sidewalks where we've required that in front of development and so forth. But I think that I'm really concerned about the fact that we would take this, and I heard I think it was a comment made the last meeting that it's good that we as a board have the flexibility to pick certain things out whenever projects come before us. And I'm certainly would be, like I said, I make sure we understand, I have no problems whatsoever in the church being there. I just think that we are in somewhat questionable ground. I can give you a church down the road where there was a requirement and we required it, but the church did not think it was necessary, and it probably isn't, because I drive through it or around it just about every Sunday. I probably should be driving around every Wednesday too, but I do make it at least every Sunday. So we need to be recognizing that first off, the staff itself disapproves. But I'm gonna end the conversation at that, and I guess Greg has got some comments too, so.
Before you go. It's your time. You choose whether you recognize.
No, I asked him to come up and answer a question.
Mayor, I just want to give a little bit of background. From an engineering standpoint, yes, this is a special request. We recognize that. All modification of standards are special requests, no doubt about it. It just so happens that along Lewisburg Pike, there's a swale. In order for the state to improve Lewisburg Pike and do the expansion that they need to do, they're going to have to pipe that section along Lewisburg Pike, or they're going to have to change the swale location. No matter which direction they decide to do, piping or swaling, there's no way we could install a sidewalk and get it right. It would be impossible because the sidewalk would be within the right of way of the road. Even if we knew where the right of way was going to be in the future through that cross section, we'd be installing a sidewalk that would eventually be torn out. Hopefully sooner than later, because we want those improvements on Lewisburg Pike. We're going to be pushing for those improvements on Lewisburg Pike. The church is going to be poised and ready to install that sidewalk, which is their responsibility at the right time, and we want to memorialize that in that development agreement. So it is a special request, and we do recognize that. Thank you.
Other comments? Alderman Brown?
That was, I think, the two things I was going to say. One was that we talked about that in the joint conceptual, and then secondly was, I totally agree with you. I don't think we should. And we did it, I know we have done it before, and I think we've stopped doing it, is allowing people not to do sidewalks. I think the difference here on this one for me is we're not saying you can't do it, or you're not allowed, or you're not going to not do a sidewalk. What we're saying is we're going to recognize that there's some work that's going to be done that would literally rip up a church's sidewalk. It's inevitable that it would happen. And I think also to your point about if somebody else came down the way with a sidewalk, to me that triggers Lewisburg Pike sidewalk is getting installed. Therefore, that would trigger their sidewalk going in. So to me, I feel like we're kind of protecting ourselves to say, at that point, you're putting your sidewalk in. So that was how I read this amendment.
I'm not, and I don't.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
So,
Okay, you ready to vote on modification standard number 2? Alderman Barnhill.
no.
Alderman Caesar.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
And Vice Mayor Baggett.
Yes.
Passes 6 to 1. Next is consideration of modification of standard number 3, which is to defer sidewalk construction on Lewisburg Pike until it's widened or in 10 years. Is there a motion to consider modification standard number 3?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to accept modification of standards number 3 with conditions, and those conditions are to defer the sidewalk until such time that Lewisburg Pike is widened or for a period of 10 years, whichever comes first, or the property directly to the north or to the south installs a sidewalk.
Second.
Appropriate motion second. Any discussion?
Yes.
Alderman Barnhill.
If Lewisburg Pike is widened before the church is required to put the sidewalk in, does the state not put the sidewalk in? As part of the project, widening the road? So theoretically, then, if that were the case, then the church would not ever meet the requirements of 10 years because the road was widened before the 10-year project, before that.
I'm not sure the state has been installing sidewalks or multi-use trails. Those are usually
I didn't say
things that-
I didn't say multi-use trails. I said the sidewalk is what we're looking at there. So, I mean,
Can I ask a similar question? I know that the language throughout this and in the motion that I just made was sidewalk. But as we discussed earlier tonight in our work session, sidewalk versus multi-use trails is a rather important distinction, especially along Lewisburg Pike, which is a main thoroughfare from the south to the north. So I don't know what maybe the requirement is. Is it for a sidewalk or is it for a more traditional multi-use path?
Zoning ordinance requires a sidewalk. If our plans are, Connect Franklin or other plans show a different type of connection. It can often be done, if it's a multi-use path, it can be done in place of the sidewalk. And we treat it the same, but the zoning ordinance language is a sidewalk.
So if I'm being somewhat biased, how wide this sidewalk is? Under this agreement.
It's in the zoning ordinance, what the requirement is. I don't want to be misquoted. I don't know if Paul knows off the top of his head.
Might.
Yeah, we can look it up for you, but I don't want to be wrong.
Alderman Potts?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I do have a point of information or clarification on what Alderman Barnhill just asked, because I don't think we got the answer. And that is, if the state comes in, because it is a state road, and the state widens Lewisburg Pike, and we take it from Mackhatcher down to wherever it goes, does the state normally install sidewalk or multi-use path connectivity along the highway when they make that improvement?
More than likely, it's going to be a negotiation. And it depends on their policies and procedures. In 10 years could be different than what they are today. There are times they ask us to pay for the trail system or sidewalks. There's other times they just put it in. So I really think it depends on funding levels, partnerships, all to be determined. It's not in their 10-year plan, so it's very unlikely that it's going to happen in the next 10 years regardless.
That's the road being built. That's the road widening.
Correct.
So and that actually goes to what Alderman Barnhill's asking is if it's going to be part of that state allocated budget for that widening at that point, and this is no disrespect to the applicant, is they're not going to be out any funds because the state's going to go ahead and build it. Is that right?
There's a good chance if the state funded it, which is not in the 10-year plan, if the state funded it, they would more than likely just build it based on today's policy.
Vice Mayor, you're recognized.
It's not in the 10-year plan.
It is not in the 10-year plan, so more than likely the church will have to build it in 10 years.
If you don't retire before 10 years, you're going to have to deal with this.
I got 9 years, so.
and you're going to have to figure this one's going to be a bit of a pickle. And we might end up being, what we're doing here, and look, this is a lot more to it, but what we're doing here is probably what's going to happen is the church is going to have to end up putting in that sidewalk where it's going to be torn up. They're just going to do it in 10 more years. And I think that's what's going to probably happen. I'm fine to vote that way because there's no other sidewalks around it. But the reality is the church is probably going to build a sidewalk in 10 years because TDOT's not going to come in there and do it because it's not their 10-year plan and they're not growing money down there at the state capitol.
Correct.
And whoever's here can deal with it then. I hate to do it. Like you're saying, you could have a partial sidewalk for the next 10, 12 years, but looks like that's the direction things are going. I don't know another option.
Alderman Berger.
So basically, if we put the sidewalk in, it's a sidewalk to nowhere because there's no other sidewalks over there. And I'm not interested in putting a sidewalk up to nowhere when we might have a road project. But the other thing is, in 10 years, if we are on the plan and TDOT's going to come in there and do the road, the board in 10 years, whoever the board consists of, whoever's on that board at the time, could extend that if they know that this road is going to get torn up. So they could say, oh, this makes no sense. We're going to extend this for 2 years, 3 years. Or TDOT says they're going to put it in, and then they negotiate that away. So there's all sorts of scenarios.
There's multiple phases from what I understand for this campus. And so chances are that sidewalk discussion will be back with another phase.
Yeah.
We pray that the state tithes to the church in the future.
Yes.
Is that it? So you ready to vote on modification of standard number 3? Alderman Barnhill.
I'm going to vote yes on this.
Alderman Caesar.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Baggett.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. We'll now go back to the original motion with all the modification of standards that we approved. You ready to vote on it? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Caesar.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Baggett.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. We'll now go to item 7. Appointment of Ken Moore, Clyde Barnhill, Ann Peterson, Greg Caesar, and Matt Brown to the Pension Committee. Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, good.
You second yourself?
I've always voted for myself.
That's right.
Seeing no discussion,
That's right.
let's vote. Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Caesar.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Baggett.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Item 8 is the reappointment of Dana Coast to the Development Services Advisory Commission.
Move
Is there
for
a
approval.
motion? Thank you.
Second.
Second by Alderman Brown. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Caesar.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Baggett.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Next is ordinance 2026-07. An ordinance to rezone 7.031 acres from Regional Commerce 12 District to Plan PD 32.7 District for the property located north of Goose Creek Bypass, west of Old Paytonsville Road, located at 2408 and 2412 Goose Creek Bypass. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Thank you, Alderman Brown.
Second.
Second by Alderman Barnhill. Any discussion?
I would like the applicant on the development plan, that would be at the next meetings, right, August 11th. I had some questions for them at that work session. Maybe they could present next on the August 11th work session for the development plan. Would that be agreeable? I still have some concerns with the architecture, but didn't really get he said yes, okay.
Well, unless you want to add it to the work session, typically it would be on as a public hearing, and you'd have time to discuss
During
it
that
then
next
too.
meeting. That's
Yeah,
fine. It
so
doesn't have to
if
be
you want it on the work session, we can put it there.
No,
but
as
if you-
long as there's some
It would be on-
interaction.
yeah.
Thank you.
Alderman Potts.
Yeah, and I've actually spoken to this one previously, and it was along the lines of architecture, because we do have a large box of a storage facility next door to it. And so that was a miss on our part to really focus in on that architecture. So we've got to make the correction here. And I feel like the applicant is trying to move in that direction right now, and it'd be really good to hear from them in that next meeting. So thank them in advance.
Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Caesar.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Baggett.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. We'll now go to item 10, which is ordinance 2026-15, an ordinance to rezone 5.14 acres from Plan PD District to Plan PD 21.7 District of property located east of Natchez Street, north of Acton Street at 137 Natchez Street, known as the Denson PUD. Place PUD, established public hearing on August 11th. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
You second by Alderman Potts. Any discussion? Seeing none, ready to vote. Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Caesar.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Baggett.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Item number 11 is consideration of ordinance 2026-16, an ordinance to rezone 7.68 acres from Plan PD District to Plan PD 18.85 District for the property located north of Westmead Boulevard, west of Brookwood Avenue, located at 500 Westmead Boulevard, Iris Place PUD, established public hearing on August 11, 2026. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Thank you, Alderman Brown. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Alderman Barnhill. Any discussion? Seeing none, ready to vote. Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Caesar.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Baggett.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Item 12 is Resolution 2026-47. Resolution to annex 5 properties consisting of 22.78 acres located north of Clovercroft Road and east of Oxford Glen Drive of the city of Franklin, Tennessee, and adjoining the city limits within the eastern part of the Franklin urban growth boundary, establishing a public hearing on August 11th, 2026. I do have one speaker that wants to speak on this. That's Janet Curtis. You have 2 minutes, Ms. Curtis.
Good evening. My name is Janet Curtis, Franklin, Tennessee. I have concerns over this annexation and zoning of this property. My concern is that I appreciate the road improvements that the developer is planning on doing, but my concern is what is that going to do to the property owners that live along that stretch when they make those improvements? Are they going to be able to get in and out of their driveways? The other concern I have is that there is a piece of property that is now going to become a donut hole and is going to be the only piece of county property surrounded by all of city property. And so as much as I appreciate the fact that the resident wants to sell their property and they have the right to do that, I think there are other concerns to be considered, and those are the rights of the property owners that live around there. So I wish that you would take those into consideration. And also the fact that staff recommended against the modifications, and yet the planning board voted to approve them. And my question is, you all have jobs. I'm sure you're all good at your jobs. The city staff is good at their jobs. Why do you have them if you don't listen to their recommendation and heed them? They do them for a reason, and I think that they need to be considered. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'll entertain a motion on Resolution 2026-47.
Move for approval.
Thank you, Alderman Berger.
Second.
Second by Alderman Brown. Thank you. Any discussion? Alderman Caesar.
I think from specifically the item before us on number 12, 2026-47, I'm going to approve, I'm going to vote in favor of it. I do have some questions as this design comes before us, specifically in regard to proximity of the southeasternmost parcel and its proximity to the widened road at only 25 feet from the backyard of that property to a widened Clovercroft is a concern for me, and I'd like for us as we go through this process to think through that. But with regard to should we go through the resolution and annex the property, I don't have concerns there.
Any other discussion? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Caesar.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Baggett.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Item 13 is ordinance 2026-17, an ordinance to zone 22.78 acres to Plan PD 1.8 district for the property located north of Clovercroft Road, east of Oxford Glen Drive, Poplar Reserve PUD, established public hearing August 11th, 2026. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Appropriate motion by Alderman Brown, second by Alderman Potts. Any discussion?
I'd just comment that, again.
Recognize, Vice
I
Mayor.
apologize, thank you. That similar to Alderman Caesar, that I'll vote for the public hearing. It's always nice to have the public hearing on the development plan, which is the second reading, and you get to hear feedback from that plan, so that's I'll vote for this to move forward.
Any other comments? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Caesar.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Baggett.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. We'll now go to consideration resolution 2026-61, a resolution to authorize funding for the construction of a 5-foot sidewalk along Crothers Parkway from Beeman Drive to Crothers Parkway Bridge. Is there a motion?
Sir, I move to approve.
Second.
Second by Alderman Brown.
Oh,
Let the record show that
Give it to
Alderman
him.
Potts made the motion.
Oh,
Any discussion?
He wants to
Ready
say
to
it.
vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Absolutely.
Alderman Caesar.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes. Ditto.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Baggett.
Yes.
It's going to be close. Alderman Potts, you're recognized. How do you vote?
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Is there any other business that needs to come before this body? If not, I will entertain our favorite motion.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Fight over that.
All in favor, aye. Aye.